Hi everyone, it's great to be here at the VR/AR Association Global Summit today, and welcome to this presentation on where privacy ends and transparency begins, and specifically in the context of eye tracking technology. My intent with this presentation is to spark a conversation on this topic. I will do a presentation that will take about 25-30 minutes. Please fire away with any questions, any comments you may have, both during the presentation and in the Q&A session that we will have afterwards. And please do use the chat function for any such comments or questions. My name is Henrik Eskilsson, and I will start this session by sharing with you a quick experiment that I did at home using an awesome product we made at Tobii, the Tobii Pro Glasses. And it looks like this. My oldest son, Hjalmar, he has just turned 18 years old, and that is the age at which in Sweden you are the legal age to do a lot of things, including getting your driver's license. And over the past few months, I have spent a fair amount of time being his instructor while he learns how to drive the car. And I will now show you a video snippet of one of the first times he drove with me in the passenger seat and my wife in the back seat. And you can see him backing out of our driveway. And when I play this video, do pay close attention to the details of the conversation here. So, here goes.
Jag kör här.
Men ser du någonting?
Ja, ja. Alltså det är ju ingen skillnad från...
Stolparna också, för det känns som det går väldigt snabbt.
Hur då?
Ja, till och med bilen tycker det.
Nej.
Vi kör väldigt nära igen.
Men vi missar.
Ut åt andra hållet. Sväng ut åt andra hållet. Annars går ju backspegeln i, ser du.
Jag är ju inte alls...
Du går jättenära.
Jag har ju flera decimeter till godo.
Det har du faktiskt inte. Om du säger det skrämmer du mig väldigt mycket. Det var 2 centimeter.
Ja.
Centimeter. Oj.
As you can see from this video, my wife is pretty certain that Hjalmar does not know what he's doing and that he will hit the gate post. Hjalmar, on the other hand, claims that he has full control, that he has processed all the relevant information, seen the gate post, the mirrors, etc. I'm sitting behind him, not really knowing what is true. What do you think is right? And I happen to know the answer, and that is thanks to the Tobii Pro Glasses that Hjalmar is wearing while driving. They record his eye movements, and hence we actually know what he paid attention to and which information he really did process. So let's check the video again, but now with his eye tracking data superimposed.
Kan jag köra här?
Men ser du någonting?
Ja, ja. Alltså det är ju ingen skillnad från...
Stolparna också, för det känns som det går väldigt snabbt.
Hur då?
Ja, till och med bilen tycker det.
Nej.
Vi kör väldigt nära igen.
Men vi missar.
Ut åt andra hållet. Sväng ut åt andra hållet. Annars går ju backspegeln i, ser du.
Jag är ju inte alls...
Du går jättenära.
Jag har ju flera decimeter till godo.
Det har du faktiskt inte. Om du säger det skrämmer du mig väldigt mycket. Det var 2 centimeter.
Ja.
Centimeter. Oj.
From this, we could all see that Hjalmar was he was in full control of the gate post. He looked at it carefully, looked at the mirror carefully. But, and I'm not sure if you noticed this at the end, he actually did not check the rear view mirror. So had a pedestrian come up from behind, he might very well have hit that person backing up. So, pass 1, he was in control of the gate post, but fail 1, he could have hit a pedestrian. And what made him hit that? Was it perhaps that his mom was complaining about the gate post and therefore he was derailed and forgot to check behind the car? And when you think about it, this is pretty powerful stuff. Data like this enables deeper insights and triggers discussions that were previously not possible. New innovative sensor technologies allow us to understand what is going on inside a person's brain, what we're paying attention to, what information we are processing and how we make decisions. This has tremendous opportunities, but it also raises important questions. Is it okay for the device to record Hjalmar's eye movements? Is it okay for me to store that data and to use it in a presentation like this? What does Hjalmar think about that? What would you think about this? And in particular, when your car will be able to do this with a sensor built into the dashboard, perhaps even without you being aware that it's happening. That is what this presentation today is all about. I co-founded Tobii 20 years ago, and today we have a broad number of amazing solutions in the market, doing things previously not possible using the technology of eye tracking. Tobii Pro Glasses is just one of them. We work with a wide range of device manufacturers to integrate eye tracking sensors into their products. Companies like Dell, Acer, Lenovo, HP, HTC, Pico all have initial products in market with our technology. And we also work with specialized integration partners for a plethora of specialized devices in fields such as assistive technology, behavior research, gaming, training, and many medical applications. Let me just take 1 minute to explain how eye tracking works as a technology. Eye tracking can be done in several different ways using different technology approaches. The most established approach is using cameras, near-infrared illuminators, and machine vision algorithms. Illuminators that project a pattern of near-infrared light on the eyes of the user, cameras that take images of the user's eyes and the pattern from the illuminators, and then advanced machine learning or other machine vision algorithms that detect the precise position of the eyes themselves, as well as the patterns that are reflected on the eyes. And from this, it's possible to precisely calculate both the position and the angle of the eyes, and from that derive where the user is looking. Eye tracking technology can be implemented both remote, so for instance with a sensor built into a computer or a car, or wearable, where the cameras and the illuminators are close to the eye, such as in the Tobii Pro Glasses we showed earlier, or in a VR or AR headset. Eye tracking sits smack in the middle of a couple of important megatrends. One of these megatrends is innovative new sensor technologies. Technologies that can read and understand users in new powerful ways. Eye tracking, speech recognition, face ID, presence detection, etc. are examples of these sensor technologies. And eye tracking is perhaps the most potent of these new sensor technologies. Our eye gaze is our most developed sense, objectively revealing what catches our attention, what drives our behavior, and influences our decisions. Another megatrend is AI and machine learning. Deep learning approaches where applications are able to deliver black box answers to complex topics. Eye tracking is itself based on AI and machine learning, but even more important, eye tracking data is one of the most important types of data to feed into AI, in particular AI that seeks to understand and relate to us as users. A third relevant megatrend is human centricity in technology, putting you as the user in focus, optimizing your experience and unleashing the full power and full capabilities of you through technology. And eye tracking is a very powerful tool here. When devices understand you, your attention, your interest, your decisions in a way that is actually very similar to how humans understand each other, technology can then become much more human-like and empower us to do more in ways that are more intuitive, more immersive, more effective. I know that all of you listening today have thoughts or concerns around privacy aspects of this. That's why we're here today, and that's definitely what this presentation is about. But before I dig into our perspective on that, I will spend a couple of minutes talking about some use cases of eye tracking. This is important to emphasize all of the amazing value that eye tracking enables, so that we can see and put privacy in the context of this. So bear with me for a few minutes. There are already thousands of companies that are discovering how to use and leverage the opportunities created by eye tracking. Companies are using eye tracking to understand their customers, how to optimize their product designs, customer journeys, and communication with their customers. Companies are also using eye tracking to understand their employees, how to optimize training, productivity, safety, and quality. Scientists use eye tracking to discover new insights in fields such as psychology, neurology, linguistics, infant development, vision research, and more. Tens of thousands of people with disabilities use eye-controlled computers to communicate, and several thousands of gamers use eye tracking to enjoy more immersive game experiences and enhance game streaming. And there is a rapidly growing number of companies that use the power of eye tracking to innovate and develop products and solutions not previously possible. And just to mention a couple of these, Novasight is one of our many innovative partners. They have invented a way to diagnose and treat amblyopia, or what's commonly called lazy eye, using eye tracking. The traditional method to treat lazy eye is that children wear an eye patch covering one of their eyes for a large part of their childhood. This is cumbersome and comes with stigma and all sorts of problems. It also has fairly poor results. With Novasight's method, your eyes are automatically trained simply by watching, for instance, a movie on a special screen for about an hour per day for a couple of months. On the screen, eye tracking is used to blur parts of the display, but only for your dominant eye. And this forces your lazy eye to improve. And preliminary results indicate that this method provides very good results and is of course much more convenient than the legacy eye patch approach. Another great example is SyncThink. SyncThink uses Tobii's eye tracking natively built into Pico's VR headsets to assess brain health, monitor recovery from neurological damage, and to improve performance. One example use case involves being able to rapidly detect concussions, for instance on the sideline of a football field. Mobalytics is another example, an esports company that has developed sophisticated tools to enable esports enthusiasts to improve and optimize their gameplay. They have millions of gamers using their platform, and League of Legends is the game they have the most advanced training tools for. Mobalytics have implemented support for eye tracking so that gamers who have a gaming PC with a built-in eye tracking sensor, or if you have a gaming eye tracker peripheral connected to your regular computer display, then you can obtain additional insights into your gameplay based on eye tracking. For instance, we have together developed methods to score your measures on measures such as tunnel vision, map awareness, and fight preparation. Lexplore use eye tracking to revolutionize how to help children learn how to read and improve their reading skills. In Sweden, a large portion of schools already use their solution, and several of them test all children in school with eye tracking reading tests. Obviously, eye tracking makes it possible for a teacher or a therapist to see exactly how the child does the reading and how the brain controls the eyes and processes the information from a text. And this makes it possible to understand what areas the child can or need to improve. All of these were just a couple of examples. There are literally hundreds of applications and use cases like this, already in the market or currently in the making. Many of these are absolutely fantastic and wonderful use cases that will make the world and mankind better. There are also very broad-based, significant benefits of technology, such as eye tracking. For instance, foveated rendering that enable devices like VR headsets to become much better by concentrating graphics rendering power to where the user is looking, or by enabling much more natural and intuitive interactions in VR and AR with social eye contact and user interactions that combine eye gaze and hands for really effective and natural pointing and clicking. Hence, eye tracking bears a promise of very broad-based proliferation, where the technology becomes truly ubiquitous across several different categories of devices, in VR headsets, in AR glasses, in PCs, in cars, and so forth. So, eye tracking already does a lot of good in the world and has the potential to do even more good in this plethora of applications and use cases across a broad range of industries. But there is one truly important thing that we need to be conscious about, and that is that eye tracking data is also highly sensitive data. Eye tracking data is as close as we get to understanding the human mind. With eye tracking, you as a user give your emotional, cognitive and psychological insights about yourself to the machine or the system. And you might be doing so in a subconscious way, without understanding if, when and what the information is read from you. And to many of us, this raises questions and creates potential uncertainty or concern. Will we as users feel comfortable to see eye tracking being used across all of our PCs, all of our VR, AR headsets, all of our cars, etc.? And for many of us, I think the answer is maybe. It depends. As you may guess, I'm pretty passionate about bringing all the good of eye tracking to the world. But I'm also genuinely passionate about that this is done in a way that is responsible, that really does good and does not create concern or problems, for instance, from a privacy perspective. And this is, of course, why I am here today. At Tobii, we believe that the critical thing that we need to accomplish for us as users to welcome and seek out the amazing and positive use cases of eye tracking is that we as users trust the technology and its use. To enable widespread use of eye tracking, we must therefore, as an industry, we must earn broad-based user trust in the technology and in particular its use. But then some of you might say, we already have different privacy regulations that are supposed to deal with this. In Europe, for instance, we have GDPR, which gives users right to and control over their data. Can't we just rely on adherence to GDPR to ensure people's privacy with regards to eye tracking data also, and problem solved? At Tobii, we think not. We do think GDPR is good and it sets a foundation, but it's not enough when it comes to data that is as sensitive as eye tracking is. First of all, GDPR is not universal. It is Europe-based. There are no universal policy frameworks in place today. Second, GDPR does not clearly state that sensitive data such as eye tracking is to be classified as personal information. And personal information is where GDPR has some real teeth. And third, and perhaps most important, GDPR is a lot about legal compliance and less about communication with users around topics like this in a manner that truly earns trust. So you can legally comply to GDPR while still presenting users with pretty long, complex text that frankly few people read or understand. And that is not sufficient to earn broad-based user trust. So if GDPR is good but not sufficient to create trust around sensitive biometric data, how do we bridge the gap? How can we as companies, as an industry, earn the trust that makes users want to embrace technology like eye tracking at scale? And we believe that the solution to this spells transparency. Trust is created by openly talking about how the data will be used, empowering the user to make the choice and assess their user value versus integrity and privacy. And this is why we at Tobii, over the past couple of years, have developed an eye tracking data transparency policy and framework. You can find more information about this policy at transparency.tobii.com, and that's a website that you see here. In this transparency policy, what do we mean by transparency? And in brief, we mean if you store or transfer eye tracking data, tell the user about it. Ask the user's permission. And tell the user what you will do with the data. And do this very, very clearly. That's essentially all that the policy asks. When we are transparent about this to all users, always, in a very clear manner, then we earn user trust. Note as a detail in this that we distinguish between using eye tracking data in real time, locally at the user's own computer, different from storing or transferring the data. Using the data in real time locally can, for instance, be to create a more immersive gaming experience, or by enabling better graphics with foveated rendering. These use cases are not sensitive, since the data is not stored beyond the user session and is not transferred to someone else to process or draw conclusions from. The sensitive moment appears when you either store or transfer the eye tracking data. That's when it leaves your personal domain, and that is when it becomes sensitive from an integrity and trust perspective. And that is when you, as a user, are entitled to know about it and have a choice to approve it and understand for what purpose it will be used. Of course, we at Tobii make sure that all of our own software adhere to this policy. But more than that, through our license agreement, we require that any software developer that uses Tobii's APIs to access eye tracking data must follow and abide to these principles. We even do reviews to ensure that software developers that use our APIs actually do implement the policy in a proper way. And why do we do this and that? It's not because it's fun. We do it because we think that this is really important. And of course, why are we then actually here today giving this presentation? We want to spread awareness about both the fantastic opportunities, but also the potential concerns and problems. And we want to collaborate with the industry at large in together establishing a joint approach to this. If we as an industry at large adopt a common approach and a common framework for how to treat sensitive biometric data, such as eye tracking, and how we implement transparency around this, then we will together amplify the trust that we instill in all of our users. It's not sufficient that Tobii, that we have an eye tracking data transparency policy. In order to create the type of trust that makes users welcome and desire the ubiquitous spread of this technology, the ecosystem at large needs to have a policy and an approach and framework like this in place. Okay, so I just wanted to spend 1 minute to talk about our view on who needs to do what for this to actually work. It is the application developer or the software vendors that must adhere to the policy. It's the software that creates the use case, it's the software that chooses to store or transfer the sensitive biometric data. Hence, it's the software application that needs to inform the user, ask for permission, and explain what it will do with the data. Those who provide the APIs that give application developers access to sensitive biometric data are the ones who must establish and uphold the policy frameworks. And the API vendor does so via the API license terms, which can mandate that software developers who use that API must adhere to certain principles. And API vendors can come in different forms. It can, for instance, be the hardware device vendor. Could be a VR headset vendor with a proprietary API that contains this kind of data. It can also be the sensor vendor. So it could be a company like Tobii with APIs to eye tracking data. It can be other kinds of engines, for instance, game engines with APIs that contain this type of data. or it can be the operating system if the OS APIs also have sensitive biometric data. And then of course we have the end user who actually chooses whether or not to accept that the software stores or transfers their data. One could of course envision that there could be an independent organization or some sort of standards body that could help establish an industry-wide policy framework here, which could make it easier for all the players in the ecosystem to adhere to a common approach. But at least as far as we know, there is no such organization or policy framework in place for specifically this as of now. So, a quick summary of what we talked about today. Eye tracking has tremendous opportunity to create value and do good. Eye tracking data is highly sensitive data. Earning users' trust is essential for eye tracking to reach its true potential. We earn user trust by being transparent. And transparency here means clearly asking for permission to store or transfer the data and informing when and for what the data will be used. And last, for this to be effective, we as an ecosystem need to work together for a common approach to transparency for data such as eye tracking. So, this was all I was planning to do in presentation style today. And again, with this, we want to create a dialogue. And let us start that dialogue already today. So please fire away with comments, asking questions on the chat for this meeting. But also, of course, in addition to that, please feel free to contact us if you would want, after this meeting as well, if you want to discuss more, if you have thoughts on how to collaborate or comments or thoughts around this topic. Also on our page, transparency.tobii.com, you have a contact form through which you can get in touch with us personally, but you can also sign up to get updates on how our work with our data transparency policy is evolving. You can receive updates or invitations to roundtable discussions and webinars that we're planning to do around this topic and around the topic of transparency. We really want to have a dialogue with you as industry colleagues on how we all can use transparency to build trust. We want to have feedback on our policy. We want to learn what you are doing in this regard, and we want to share best practices among ourselves. So let's get started, and let's see what we have as a first question on the chat.